So I didn't finish my Aquaman, what is it called, video that day. So I'm gonna go ahead and quickly talk about it. So now the reason why I said Aquaman and Dhul Qarnayn was because we gotta look at a couple things. Okay, to look at it, we have to go back to the first video where it talks about me explaining the word for Qarnayn. It's not only what they perceive to understand as the one with the two horns, but it's two authorities, two kingdoms, two places of authority. Actually, things of that sort. I can go on and elaborate on it, but again, I have to go back to that verse and that word and to continue. But what I want you to see is something very interesting. In the Quran, right, it talks about, as I left off at, Sulaiman al-Islam's kingdom being built by these divers and these things that are locked up in chains. If you look at the Injil also mentions the marine kingdom, okay, and how they're wicked and how that these are some evil creations, and so on and so forth. So we see that do you see the similarity here? In the Quran, it's talking about these evil ones that are locked up in chains, and also these divers, right? And then we look at it in the Injil, and it talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about this marine kingdom with like a host of just wicked creations, right? Um, and now let's go back to Aquaman. Okay, just interestingly enough, not only Aquaman, but throughout history, we see the appearance of mermaids, right? Or these stories about mermaids, right? And what are mermaids? Mermaids are just, they talk about Atlantis and they talk about everything, but it's just, what they, kind of portray it to be as another creation of God that's able to have the ability just to live, in the waters, right? So to be able to live in the waters. Now, Aquaman is this character who is half human and half, you can say, mermaid. Almost like a creation that's able to breathe below the waters, and then also a creation that's able to breathe above the waters. Interestingly enough, cool thing to see is that in this we see he is the king of two kingdoms. The king, or rather king of, he is the king of below the waters, right? Even though he's like half breed, but he has authority. He sums up to having authority below the waters, of Atlantis and stuff like that. But let's go back a little bit. What does he do? As we're looking through the ocean waters in the movie, we're seeing that he comes across this place, which is like a trench. And a trench is what? It is lava, pretty much like how you would see a volcano above water. It's a volcano below water, right? Below ground, into the waters. But what's down there as well too? The Earth's core. What is found in the Earth's core? Iron. Okay, iron. So check this out. Now we have iron down there. Okay, we have iron down there. We also have a trench with like what describes to be where we would find this, hot, murky water. Hot, murky water. Maybe the trench? Maybe that iron core? That iron core is what is covering up this creation that God is saying is just, swarming upon each other. This creation that's swarming upon each other until the day of what? It describes it until the day of judgment. That only disbelievers are going to be able to see that day. So could it verily be, just out of the million and one possibilities, an individual that, possesses between the two barriers? What are the two barriers? Just like the two barriers of the salty and the fresh water don't touch, right? We have a barrier between the sea and the earth. And if you look back at the NGO too, remember, it says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing, that which is in heaven, that which is on earth, and that which is below the earth. So, what is also below the earth? Below the earth is also water, right? Sediments, sedimentation, and water. Water and sedimentation. Vice versa. Below this earth is also water. Below this earth is also sedimentation. So, and do you get what I'm talking about? Like, do you get my flow here? So my mind was just all over the place thinking of interesting things, like, just before I used to think it was like an iron wall, the iron wall that we have that, dissipates the comets that come in, because that's an iron wall too, by the way. The iron wall that exists in Samawati, okay. The firmament, as they say, the firmament. But now that I think about it, it's the murky waters, and then there's the core of iron down there too, which would make more sense, because sometimes when I love reading the Quran and bringing it to the Injil, sometimes because it's like, it truly does confirm the Injil and the portions that are still rich with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's inspiration of that which hasn't changed, because of course if it's God's word, it can only be truly a continuation of the same message, the same truth. It cannot be far from the truth. It cannot be far from the truth. So with that being said, it's really, really interesting to see if we were to take the Quran where it talks about these divers, what could be divers other than mermaids? What could be locked up in chains other than some place that is talked about being wicked, also in the Injil, so it's in the Quran. It's also in the Injil talking about, the marine kingdom being so wicked, And then at the same time, we have trenches that are actually, hot, like they're lava, right? Like they're a hot body of water. And then right below that is, your, right below that is your core, your iron. So could it just be that iron is covering up? Could it be that iron is covering up for none other than what mankind is yet to witness? So pray for the world.